Hi everyone, welcome back for another video. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to find the x-intercepts and the y-intercept of a given equation and from a graph as well. So let's first define what is an x-intercept and y-intercept. So as you may recall, x-intercept is the point where the graph intersects the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, and y-intercept is the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. So let's write down the rules. How do we compute them? So here's the rule to find the x-intercept. So for x-intercept, you're going to set your y equals to 0 and then solve for x. And for the y-intercept, the rule is to set x equals to 0, and then you're going to solve for the y value. So then you'll have your coordinates x comma y depending on the equation. So let's look at this example on the left. We want to compute the x and y intercepts. So for x-intercept, we're going to set y equals to 0. So we will have the following equation to solve. So we have 4 times 0 is equal to negative x squared. Okay, so now I can just do the computation. 4 times 0, that's 0, is equal to negative x squared. To get rid of the negative sign, we multiply both sides by negative 1 or divide by negative 1. That will still be 0 equals x squared. And now to get rid of the square, we take the square roots on both sides. That gives us square root of 0, which is 0 is equal to x. So there you go, you have your x-intercept, which is 0, comma 0. And now for the y-intercept, we are going to set x equals to 0. So that would give us the equation 4y is equal to 0 squared, which is 0. And then we divide by 4, so that will give us y is equal to 0. So there you'll have your y-intercept is again the point 0, comma 0. So in this equation, it just happens to be the x and y-intercept both the same point 0, comma 0. Okay. Okay, so let's try this one. Let's find the x and y-intercept for this particular example. So again, for x-intercept, we're going to set y equals to 0. So we have 4x squared plus 25. So y is 0, so we'll do 25. 0 squared is equal to 100. And we know this term goes to 0 because 0 times any number will be 0. So what we have is 4x squared is equal to 100. And then we're going to divide by 4 because we want to solve for x. So we will have x squared is equal to 100 over 4, which is 25. And now to solve for x, we're going to take the square root on both sides. Again, you have to remember, every time you take a square root, you have to put plus and minus. So hence we have x is equal to plus and minus 5. So the x-intercepts for this problem would be plus 5, comma 0, and negative 5, comma 0. So these are the x-intercepts. Now for the y-intercept, we're going to set x equals to 0. So we will have 4 times 0 squared plus 25 y squared is equal to 100. Now this term goes to 0 because 0 times, again, any number is 0. So we have 25 y squared is equal to 100. And then we divide by 25, so that gives us y squared is equal to 100 over 25. And then we have y squared is equal to 4 because 100 over 25 is 4. Then we take the square root and we remember to put plus and minus. So we have y is equal to plus and minus 2. So we have 2 y-intercepts for this equation. So we have y-intercepts are 0, comma 2 and 0, comma negative 2. So we actually have 4 intercepts. We want to find the X and Y intercepts. Okay. So for the X-intercept, we're going to look at the X-axis, which is the horizontal axis. So by looking at this graph, we can see that it crosses the X-axis at this point, which is 1, 0. So we know by looking at the graph, our X-intercept is 1, 0. And again, by looking at the graph, we can observe that the Y-intercept is this point. It's when the graph crosses the Y-axis. So we can read it off from the graph that the Y-intercept is going to be the point, X coordinate is 0 and Y is 2. So we're able to get these points just by looking at a graph. Okay, so that's another way you can find your intercepts. Let's look at another graph. So here's another graph, and we want to find X and Y intercepts. So for X-intercept, again, we're looking at the X-axis and observe where's the graph crossing the X-axis. So if you look at the graph from left to right, here's a point that's crossing the X-axis, and that point happens to be -2, 0. And as you look, there's also another point when the graph crosses the X-axis, which happens to be this point, and that coordinates happens to be 2, 0. So in this picture, we have 2 X-intercepts. Now let's look for the Y-intercept. So now we want to see where is the graph crossing the Y-axis. And as you can see, it's crossing it right here at this point, which happens to be 0, 2. So there you go, we have computed our X and Y intercept for this graph. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this was helpful. So this is it for this video. Thank you for watching.